other for years. Thanks for joining
Long
us.
time. It's been 20 years. Long time.
Right.
Probably almost close to 20 years. 15 for sure.
I know. It's just, I would say exactly 15 years.
Yeah.
And the first time I met you was when I was going to be renting out your condo on Stadium Road.
That's right.
Okay.
I remember that.
And as I was thinking about what we were going to kind of discuss today, that came to my mind, that being one of your condos at that time.
Yeah.
And I was just starting in the business. And I remember you in conversations having others, like other investment properties.
That's right.
And it was such a huge moment for me because I finally met somebody who had multiple properties. Like this was kind of a dream. Like my parents always bought one property, they rented out the basement, but never got to the step of getting more. Right? So that's really one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you today. In the last few episodes, we've done some cool things with the podcast. We've opened it up into talking about entrepreneurship and business. So you fit all that. You obviously have your own multimedia company, Taurus Multimedia. I want to talk about some of the things that, obstacles that you had to face, fears and all of that. So why don't we get into it? Why don't you give us a little bit of background of yourself, Dominic?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me, buddy. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you, whether it's personal or business.
I love it.
It's always we always have a great time. Whether we're working or whether we're having fun, it's always a good time. Listen. In a nutshell, it all at the end of the day, it comes down to mindset. So where did I get the mindset? My parents, immigrants from Italy, they were always entrepreneurial. Okay. They purchased. My father was a carpenter.
Okay. This is back in Italy.
No, here.
Okay. So when did they come here?
They came here in the 50s, in the late 50s, and you're new to the country. The only thing you know is a lot of at that time. The only thing they really knew and they really trusted, frankly, was we buy a property, we fix it up, we rent it out. It's just because they were ignorant with other investments. It's not that they were stupid, they just didn't know.
I.e. like stocks and all
They
that
didn't know. They didn't know about stocks and this and that. All they knew is if we buy a property, what's the worst thing that can happen? We're in control of the property, right? My mother was more of the quote-unquote go-getter businesswoman, right? Yeah. And this is a woman even with barely any education, but she knew if I buy a property and my husband fixes it up, because he's a carpenter, we don't have to pay someone else to do it, right? So he'll fix it up, and my uncle was a plumber, and my other uncle did tiles, so they all got together, they would buy a property, fix it up, and then they would rent it out.
Okay.
And I was a kid. I was 8, 9, 10 years old. And I still remember, it was Thanksgiving, it was, whether it was a holiday or whatever, if a tenant would move in or move out, regardless of what time of year it was, I'd go there with my mother, we'd make sure the tenant moved in, she'd ask me to sweep up the driveway, she'd ask me to take this out, and I would just always be involved. At the time, I didn't want to be involved, I was a kid.
You were 8, 9 years old.
But it started with that mindset, with real estate, and I remember what they always told me, what's the worst thing that can happen? Tenant moves out, we'll rent it again, right? It burns down.
Right.
Oh my God, what if it burns down? It's insured. So they always thought, what's the worst thing that can happen? And they always thought long-term, safe investment. So we're not going to lose our money. It's safe.
They understood the whole buy and hold.
That's right. Okay. That's right. They understood that.
Still want to talk a little bit more about you. So now, you're born and raised here. You went to school here. When did that business switch go on in your head? I want to work for myself, or I want to open up a business. Tell me tell me a little bit about some jobs that you had and stuff.
So I went to college for a couple of months. While I was in college, I was in the wedding business. Okay. And I was working on Saturday. I had my own small little wedding company working from home. Literally. Like
wedding planning? Or
no. I was wedding videography and photography.
Okay.
So I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and I had a little small, rinky-dinky little wedding business working from home. Okay. And I was 18 years old. Yeah. And I went to college, and after a couple of months, frankly, I dropped out of college.
College for
technology? No. I took communications in college. Okay. So after a couple of months, I dropped out, and I don't recommend it,
Right.
dropping out.
Right.
If I had to do it all over again, I'd go and get my MBA. At the time, it was a good idea.
Okay.
And the reason why I dropped out is, frankly, I was bored.
Okay.
Maybe I was in the wrong course. Maybe it was just not the right time for me. Maybe I should have took a year off. And
Not your
and
passion.
work. Maybe it wasn't my passion. But I said, in my gut, I'm an entrepreneur, just like my parents. And, I saw my mother, new to the country, spoke barely no English at all, didn't know the laws, didn't know what was going on in the country, but her spirit as an entrepreneur, she succeeded. My father succeeded as an entrepreneur, and I've seen other people do it. So, having said that, if you have both, now that I'm older and wiser, if you have both the education and an entrepreneur spirit, the sky's the limit for you.
Especially if you can match them both.
Absolutely.
Right.
But at the time, I dropped out of college and I pursued my career in the photography and video wedding business. And then I did that part-time until I was 25.
Okay, so now you're picking up other odd
Yeah,
jobs.
so I was working during the week for a film company, full-time. I was a full-time employee during the week. And on the weekends, I had my own little wedding company. So that's how it was.
So you worked 9 to 5.
That's right.
And then had that side hustle.
Exactly.
Going on. Love it.
So from 18 years old to 25, I worked 9 to 5 for a film company. And then on the weekends, I had my little wedding business. So I worked 6, sometimes 7 days a week. I would shoot, European weddings on Saturday. On Sunday, it would be Jewish weddings or whatever came my way. I would work it. Greek weddings, they get married on Sunday, whatever it was. Sometimes I was working 6, 7 days a week.
I feel like the 9 to 5 gig that you were doing wasn't really work because it was kind of within your passion.
Yeah.
Right? And then you still coming home and working,
That's right.
working, quote unquote, afterwards.
That's right.
You're going towards your passion.
That's right.
Right? You're continuously working.
Absolutely.
So
now I'm making, I was making money during the week,
Yeah.
and I was making, I had my own little business on the weekends, and it was obviously more 2 incomes coming in. Late 19, 20 years old, 2 incomes.
Sure.
With all, not to knock them, but a lot of my friends were working at No Frills and McDonald's.
Sure.
And that was okay at the time.
Right.
But, thankfully I was, I had other things going on, so that was great.
Right. Well, you're working 7 days a week. You're busy too,
7 days a
right?
week.
Yeah.
No vacations, nothing, just work.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I remember a friend of mine called me. My birthday's in May. He called me towards the end of May. He goes, I have to take you off for your birthday. And I said, let me check my calendar. We'll set up a date. Because I was working every single weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I looked at my calendar and I said, how's the end of October? The true story. And he said, what, end of October? I go, I'm working every single weekend until the end of October because the wedding business was from April to the end of October.
Sure.
I had no weekends off, no fun, I had fun doing what I was doing.
Obviously.
But no social, going out with friends, right? That's a true story.
I love that.
At 25 years old,
Okay.
my father passed away,
Okay.
unfortunately. This is 21 years ago. And true story, after that tragic event that he passed away, I said, what am I going to do? Am I going to just be miserable for the rest of my life, or am I going to take a chance? I want to be an entrepreneur. So whatever I need to do to fulfill that dream, I'm going to do it. It was that one moment. And just a side conversation, I remember when I was about 15, 16 years old, I walked into a variety store in my neighborhood. I grew up in the Oakwood and Vaughan area of Toronto.
Yeah.
Walked into a variety store, and the owner of the variety store barely spoke English, barely didn't know what was going on in the store or whatever, but she was successful. There was a lineup behind me, and they were selling flowers, and they were selling this, and this store was always busy. And this couple that owned the variety store, they were like incredibly busy, didn't know the laws, didn't know the languages. They just did everything on a hunch.
Yeah.
Right? They just threw it, and whatever happens. Let's just do our best.
All we ever talk about in our office is ready, fire, aim.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what they did. They ready, fire, aim. And that's, at that moment, I had like an epiphany. I said, if they could come to this country and run a successful business with barely speaking any English and barely knowing the laws and they just did everything on, let's just try it and we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
As my dear friend Simon used to say, we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. I said, if they could do it, maybe I can do the same thing.
Right.
And maybe I could be a little bit more successful because I was born here, I speak the language. So I think I have a couple of advantages because I was born in Canada, I speak the language and everything else. So that's what also gave me that little spark to say, you know what, I want to go that route, the entrepreneur route.
So at 25, unfortunately, your father passes away.
Yeah.
Now again, sometimes it takes tragic events
That's right.
for people to make
That's
a
right.
move one way or the other.
That's right.
You say, I'm out with the 9 to 5 and in with my own business.
So I worked for Rogers
Okay.
when I was 25 as one of their sales agents in a Rogers store.
Okay.
At the time it was called Cantel.
Oh yeah, I remember.
My dad passed
Rogers
away.
slash-
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I quit my job.
Okay.
And I said, I'm going to go entrepreneurial I'm going to be an entrepreneur full time.
Okay.
So I ran my multimedia business full time.
Okay.
And in 2004, I sold my wedding business.
Okay.
And I just concentrated on corporate, commercial, multimedia projects.
What made you go into that? Like, it sounds like a niche to me, right? Like from wedding business, very macro.
Yeah.
What made you get into kind of corporate,
Yeah.
shooting videos for them? How did that all come about?
So the connections I made in the wedding business, I was also dabbling because I worked full time for a film production company, one of the major ones in Canada that were based in Toronto. Because I worked for the Partners Film Company at the time, I made a lot of connections in the corporate field. And when I went full time, those relationships I still had, and we were still very good friends with some producers and directors in the film and television business, and they knew I was full time, and so the multimedia business started flourishing because of those past relationships that I made.
Okay, so now it's
Yeah.
it's just you at this time?
Just me.
Okay, just
Yeah,
you.
just me.
You're going out, getting the groceries, coming home, making the cook, like in terms of business. I'm trying to use that
Everything.
analogy.
It was a one-man, yeah.
It's a one-man show.
Absolutely.
When did you decide you needed help, and when did that happen? Like, I need to get somebody else.
So it was just me for a while, but in our business you can't do everything. I learned very quickly you can't do everything on your own. If you want to be successful, you have to surround yourself with good people. And I don't call them employees because I never like being the boss. I like just having partners. Because no one wants. At the end of the day, no one wants to work for anybody.
Right.
And I think having employees there's a lot of ego involved.
Yeah.
So anytime I hire someone, I'm like, look, you're not my employee. I'm not your boss. We just partner up on projects. So I learned very quickly that you couldn't do everything yourself.
Okay.
And I would hire other freelancers
Okay.
that to help me out on different projects and everything else. And the business just took off like crazy, which was great.
So if someone's sitting here now listening, and they are at that same stage, not when you were
Yeah.
25, a little bit earlier, not sure if they can do this, take the step.
Yeah.
What's some advice you'd give them, man?
Advice is do whatever you have to do to follow your dream as an entrepreneur. As long as it's within the boundaries of being, as long as everything is legal and everything is moral.
Yes.
Whatever you have to do. I'm going to give you a quick example.
Yeah.
When I was 16 years old, I started shooting little events. I was 16 years old. I just got my license. Picture a 16-year-old, just got my driver's license, and I started shooting little events as a photographer, videographer. I had this video camera shooting on VHS.
I'm sure back then it wasn't a little video camera.
No, it was,
Yeah.
I needed a light
Okay.
for on top of the camera.
Okay.
A light.
Sure.
Couldn't afford a light. I was 16. My parents were immigrants. I'm one of 5 children. And, frankly, spending $100 on a piece of video equipment for me, they're like, I don't know if he's going to... It's like, do we buy the groceries or do we buy the light for Dominic? What do we do? So they went the grocery route, and I don't blame them, right? So what I did is I taped, this is a true story, a light bulb. I don't know if you remember those light bulbs that you can screw into an extension cord.
Oh, yes.
And the extension cord,
Yeah.
it's a screw light bulb, and then obviously the other end plugs into the wall.
Sure.
I taped the light on the handle of the camera, and that's what I would use for the quote-unquote professional light.
Oh, wow.
That's what I would do. And the reason I'm telling you is that, you know what, we run into even now, entrepreneurs run into so many obstacles. You just have to figure it out. If there's no answer at the front door, you knock on the side door. You go through the back. You open up the window. Whatever you need to do to make it happen, you make it happen. And that's what a lot of people have to remember.
Right.
Is that, you know what? Things don't come easy, unfortunately. It's all about effort and hard work. And you have to be creative. If you want to be successful, you have to be creative. Not necessarily competitive, but creative. Being creative is more powerful than being competitive.
Elaborate a little bit more on that, buddy.
I read a book called Think and Grow Rich.
Okay, Napoleon Hill.
Napoleon Hill. Sorry, it's not Think and Grow Rich. It's The Science of Getting Rich. Wallace Wattles, The Science of Getting Rich. And the whole book is about, in a nutshell, don't be competitive because you're going to burn out. Be creative. If you're creative, you don't have always that competitive fire that burns out after a while. Sometimes being competitive makes you angry, it's negative energy. A lot of it is to be creative. If you're creative, you'll get further ahead. And it's positive energy that goes into being creative, not negative energy that goes into a lot of being competitive. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's why you and I have been friends for such a long time, because we not only speak the same language, but we actually practice it, right?
Sure.
There's so much that you've said that not only have I heard you say it before, but I've seen you practice it, which is really good, right? And important. When it comes to investing now into real estate, when did you start that? At what age?
I was 21 years old.
Okay.
I bought. My mother said to me, "There's a property on Glenholm Avenue, which is in the St. Clair and Dufferin area.
Not too far from where you grew up.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a property on Glenholm Avenue. You should go see it." I'm 21 years old.
Why is she calling you to say go see it?
Because she invested in multiple properties, and she said, "You know what? You're 21. It's time for you maybe to buy a property. Let's go see it."
Okay.
Right. So we walked over. It was like 3-4 blocks
You
from
and
our
Mom?
house. No, we didn't have a car.
Right.
We didn't have a car.
Sure.
My father didn't drive.
Okay.
My mother didn't drive.
Right.
We didn't have a car.
Right.
And just a side story. My mother always encouraged us to get our licenses when we were 16, so we could drive them around. We didn't have a car. We weren't poor.
Right.
True story. We weren't poor.
Yeah.
But we were on the edge of town. From
Sure.
from every penny was allocated.
For sure.
So we go see this property.
Okay.
417 Glenholm. We go see this property, and it was $90,000. And my mother was very, very good friends with a real estate broker, and he actually became the president of the Toronto Real Estate Board. His name
cool.
He's totally retired now. His name was James Mazzoni.
Okay.
Mizzoni.
So before my time.
Before your time, and before the time where they had the big book, and if you wanted to see a property, they go through the book. I still remember that. So we bought this property for $90,000, detached, private driveway, 2-bedroom home in the center of Toronto.
If you remember, did it have a basement apartment as well? And
It did not have a basement apartment.
Okay.
The apartment was totally unfinished.
Okay.
And but it was $90,000. And so we put a down payment of $20,000-$30,000. I don't remember exactly. It was about $25,000, and it was the money I made from the wedding business and everything else. We just compiled it down. My mother helped me as well. Compiled a small down payment, and we bought this property. And that was my first property. I was 21. I had a property. I paid it $90,000, and we rented it out. And then something magical happened, where I'm like, paid it $90,000. Most of it is not my money, because we had a small mortgage, and at the time it was a big mortgage. It sounded like a big mortgage, but $90,000 in rentals, it was about a $70,000 mortgage.
Right.
And the tenants started paying down the mortgage, and every couple of months, I would look at the bank statement. I'm like, that's funny. It used to be a $70,000 mortgage, but now it's only $68,000. Now it's only $67,000. And then it just occurred to me. I'm like, I only put $20,000 down payment. Tenants paying down the mortgage, and then Mr. Mazzoni said, "Domenic, remember that property you bought 2 years ago? It's increased in value $30,000. So all these steps, and I was totally green in the wedding business. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like almost free money. I almost felt guilty of taking this money. What do you mean it went up? It increased in value $20,000, because I knew how hard I had to work to make $20,000
net after taxes.
Yeah, that's right. Or $10,000, or $5,000, or $1,000. I knew hard, and he's telling me it increased in value $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. Mortgage is paying it's being paid down. For me, it was like, because I didn't know anything about real estate,
Right.
it was like free money. It's like, where's this money coming from? This is impossible. And so that's when it started all to happen.
Okay, so now, next one. I want to hear about it.
And so at the time, my mother had a rental property on Vaughan Road.
Right.
She bought a cottage, had multiple rental properties, and my father would fix it up. And then the next one that I purchased, I was walking on, and some things in life just happen to you. If you have good intentions and you have that and you keep that positive mindset, I don't know how to explain it.
Like attracts like.
Things just come to you. I'm walking on the Queensway, on Queens Quay.
The harbourfront in Toronto.
The harbourfront in Toronto, and I see this handwritten sign tied to a post, and it said condo for sale, call this number. Now, you look at all the other signs and they're like professionally made, and you know, they all looked so great and fancy, and then I see this handwritten sign, condo for sale, call this condo. Right away, I thought, this is a deal, because they can't afford marketing. So probably, maybe this, if I call this guy, he's trying to get rid of this.
But I love how you're looking for those opportunities.
Of course.
Your eyes are always open for this stuff,
Listen,
right?
Having parents new to the country, everything was a negotiation. You know, we would go to, at the time, I don't know if you remember Nob Hill Farm.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure.
She would be negotiating with the cashier. Go, Ma, you can't negotiate.
Ma, you can't do
this. You know, the pizza guy would come, what do you mean it's $15? Give me $13. I go, Ma, there's no negotiation, you can't do that. Just give the guy $50 and a tip, right? Like it's just you know, it's all about negotiations. True story. Everything was a negotiation. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, obviously.
So you grew up in that. You grew up in that realm.
Right.
Where I saw the sign. I'm like, maybe I'm gonna get a deal. Maybe like, you know. So I called the sign. Whatever. Long story short, bought my second property.
Condo on the harbourfront.
Condo on the harbourfront.
Okay.
Second property. And
a little different though, right? Because mom and dad, always homes, land. You could rent. There's more options. If I remember correctly, the harbourfront was a one-bedroom.
That's correct. One plus den. Correct.
Still, you needed to. Did you get more knowledge about kind of the condo market? Because this is still early in the condo game. It's not now 2018 where everybody's living in condos and everyone's okay with it.
So it was the last condo in the building, and the agents that were selling, the sales representatives that were selling the condos in the building, this was their office. So I walk in there. And it's their office. And she's like, there's a lost condo, we'll give you a deal. And you know, it was all full of office furniture, because that's where they had all their sales presentations and drawing up their agreements and everything else. It was a lost condo. And I learned in real estate that it's not necessarily always about location. Our good friend Simon taught me that it's about cash flow, not about, so numbers make sense, doesn't matter about the location.
And I know what you mean by in terms of cash flow, but again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's the income covers the expenses.
That's exactly right.
Nothing's out of your pocket.
That's exactly right.
Just let's look at it from a numbers perspective. Don't let the emotions get involved.
Exactly. So look at this condo, made sense, purchased a condo, hired a painter to just paint it up. Everything was pretty much brand new. It was a couple of years old, maybe a year old. And we rented that one out. I believe that the agent that sold me the condo also found the tenant.
Okay.
And so we rented it out.
Nice.
And again, that's you know, income property number 2. And then before and during that time, I purchased my property that I lived in. So this is really it's income property number 2, but in the whole spectrum, it's property number 3. I lived in one.
Yes.
I lived, because I moved out of my house. I lived in one, and I had 2. This is my second rental property.
So you've taken advantage of the fact that, you know, when you're looking at the bank statements, right? Mortgage principal is going down, and then you find out what the values are. They've also increased. You've taken advantage of being able to refinance and use other people's
Absolutely.
money.
And that's exactly how I purchased the condo on Queens Quay. I took out an equity line of credit on my first property, and
That shit must have blown your mind at that time, though.
Listen.
But now you're getting down payments from other people's money, right?
Listen, totally, if you're too confident, you make mistakes. And being confident is okay, but you always have to have a little bit of fear, because if you don't, that's foolish. You always have to. We cross the street every day. You'd be really foolish to just run across the street and always think a car's not going to hit me.
Hope for the best, plan for the worst.
Right? So you always have to have a little bit of doubt, a little bit of fear. But I also found, not only in my traditional business, but in real estate and whatever other venture that I get into, is that if you surround yourself with good people, not good people, the best people, and you get the best advice, I also found that they also associate with the best people. Lawyers, accountants, whoever it is. And so I got all that good advice, that excellent advice, which made me feel a lot more confident.
You built the team out.
I built a team.
You didn't try to do this all on your own.
And you can't do it on your own. You need a good team. So equity line of credit, use that as a down payment for the second property, as a down payment, and then obtain a second mortgage for the principal, for the remaining balance of the property. So now I'm using 100% of the bank's money on the second property, not my money, 100% of the bank's money. Down payment came from my first property, and then the remaining funds came from another financial institution. And the tenant was paying everything down.
And, one of the reasons we were able to kind of match schedules today, because
Yeah.
we actually had a meeting set to talk a little bit about, thinking about maybe pulling out some equity out of some properties and doing this over again now.
That's right.
And seeing what your options that you have available. But tell me a little bit about your Florida property.
So the Florida property, in 2007, 2008, as everyone knows, there was a big financial crisis around the world. Started with the crisis in the U.S., the financial crisis in the U.S., and real estate dropped significantly, as everyone knows, in the U.S. And I was interested in that. I said, well, maybe there's again the deal. Maybe there's a deal. Maybe I can pick something up. Who knows? I was just curious. Not necessarily I wanted to buy something or fly to Florida and look around. I was just curious. Like, okay, well maybe, and it's also when you're challenged, you always, as an entrepreneur, you can't get complacent. Always have to keep pushing yourself. What if this? What if that? So our dear friend Simon introduced me to a realtor in Orlando, and I flew to Orlando with my cousin. And he's an engineer, so he knows a lot about, different structures and everything else, structural engineer and electrical engineering. So he came with me, and we looked at 3 properties, and I'm like, hang on a second, this is $90,000. It was $99,000.
And now we're not talking
And at the
1980s,
time,
we're talking 2000.
That's right, $99,000, and at the time, the dollar was at par with the U.S. So it's not $99,000 U.S., it's just $99,000 at par. Like, whoa. There was only one little clause. Couldn't get a mortgage in the U.S. because you don't work in the U.S. You're not a U.S. citizen, so I had to basically the entire buy cash $99,000. Where am I going to get $99,000? Till this day, people don't believe me because a lot of people it's not that they don't believe me, they just don't understand the formula. I got that condo for free. So now you're silent, and that's the response I get from everyone. They're like, "What do you mean free? Nothing is free." Let me explain. It was $99,000 at par,
right?
The Florida property.
Yes.
I got a $99,000 line of credit from my second property now in the Queens Key. Got a $99,000 line of credit, paid off the Florida property. Florida property was rented, so it came with a tenant, rented. The positive cash flow from the tenant pays back the $99,000 that I borrowed, which is still paying back today.
So the payment on that $99,000, I won't quote you, approximately, what's the payment on the $99,000? Monthly?
Not without having my statement in front of me,
Yeah.
It's about, I pay down about $600-700 a month. That's the positive cash flow that I'm getting every month from the Florida property, approximately $600-700 a month. So it's being paid down every month, $600-700. I don't know the exact figure, but it's between $600 and $700.
In case someone doesn't rewind the podcast, I want to make sure people got what you said.
Sure.
The $99,000 that you paid for the Florida property came from your second property, which was on the harborfront here in Toronto. You refinanced it, or you got a line of credit, I apologize on it.
Correct.
Took that line of credit, paid off the condo in Florida.
Correct.
And now the payment that's left on that line of credit of a few $100s a month,
correct,
is being paid down by the tenant in Florida.
Exactly. That's exactly right. All I did was shuffle paperwork. That's all I did. So really, it's a free condo. And if you ask the right questions, and if you believe what the professionals that you surround yourself with are telling you, and if you think outside of the box, it's a free condo.
To our listeners, you guys obviously can't see Domenic. He's a very good-looking guy and very polished. However, he's just a normal guy.
My daughter doesn't say that. She goes, "What are you wearing? Why are you wearing that? What are you going to do with your hair? You're not going to go out like that." Thank you for the compliment.
I wanted to say that because it's this is not what you had your education in. This is
I'm a college dropout.
I know.
I'm a college dropout. I'm not proud of it, but I'm a college dropout. And if you have, if you
Bill
have,
Gates was too, right?
yeah, if you have the drive, and if all you need is that spark and that drive. That listen, I don't know what it is, but you're taught it, you're born with it, it's in your DNA. I don't know what it is, but a lot of people have that spark, where no matter what, they figure it out. No matter what. And unfortunately, some people don't have the spark, but even if you don't have the spark,
have the patience.
You have the patience and surround yourself with a good team.
Well, look,
absolutely.
Sophia's now, how old?
She's starting her first year of university, so she's going to be 18.
Perfect.
She's 18, yeah.
She might not get that spark for a couple of years, but I have a feeling,
yeah,
as daddy,
yeah,
you'll say, hey, just have some patience.
Right.
It will come.
Right.
Don't rush it.
That's right.
And then follow that passion. Don't go after the money.
That's right.
The money will follow you once you're doing what you're passionate about.
And while you're waiting, read the books. While you're waiting, and listen, this is just my opinion. I'm not telling people what to do. While you're waiting, when you're in your car, instead of, I love P. Diddy and I love rap and I'm a drummer and I love rock and I love music, period.
Yeah.
And I love listening to the news because I want to keep updated. Sometimes you just got to turn it off and put an educational CD, self-development, real estate related, whatever. Just because you're a college dropout or a high school dropout or you're new to the country, it doesn't matter. There's a way of self-education is worth more than formal education.
Well, formal education, I think, will make you a living. Personal education can make you a fortune.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. So, read the books, stay updated, listen to educational stuff, and every day you become better and better and better, because repetition is the mother of skill. So you just become better and better and better, and that's what happened. That's a true story. And then, other properties, and we just kept going.
Opportunities keep on coming.
Absolutely.
Domenic, thank you so much for your time, buddy.
Thank you for having me. I love you too, Jazzy.
You're awesome.
And we have the same skin tone, which is always great.
I love it.
We're family.
We are. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
In the buy and hold strategy. We were talking to Simeon and Jas. Now we have Sue Murphy on the show. Sue, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I can't believe that you have, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's nine different properties or nine tenants over 2 years.
Correct.
And so how did this happen? I mean, you just have a ton of cash under the mattress and we're just buying up everything? Or is there a bit of a strategy? Simeon and Jas kind of mentored you into this. I'm assuming there's some refinancing in these properties, but tell me, how did this happen?
Absolutely, they helped us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sue Murphy, for joining us today. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. You just closed on a property in Pickering, so I know you're going to be running there afterwards, you mentioned.
Yes.
And not only have you closed on that property, but you've closed on a total of how many now?
This will be 11.
This will be the 11th property. So, what I wanted to talk to you about is what you've done in terms of how many properties, as well as what it took, how much, and share as much as you're okay to share. But I also know that you have, you run a very successful grocery franchise. So you're not doing this full time. You have approximately how many? 200 employees?
Yes.
A little over 200 employees. You're going to be shifting in and wanting to do a new business as well, which we'll touch on.
Yeah.
But why real estate?
My partner and I, we always wanted to invest. Our goal was to buy a house, invest in it, and make money.
Okay.
That's how we started.
Okay.
Thought everybody else is doing it, we want to do it too. He was good at the maintenance side of it, I would do the administrative side. So that was the deal. But it was to make money in the beginning.
Okay.
Secure our future, our kids' future.
So, but at that time when you guys are sitting down, you're probably sitting, over a coffee,
Yep.
and you're saying, okay, let's invest. But you could have invested in stocks, in mutual funds, and I know you're bright enough to know not to keep the money in the bank or underneath the pillow.
Exactly.
Not that the bank they're not bad people, but the interest rate, the returns that you're getting are going to be very low. But why real estate? Was this something that you would have known from before? Like, where did the education come from?
Just from hearing other people's stories.
Okay.
Yeah, they bought a property. It was easy once they got into it. They made a lot of cash flow, way more than you make on RSP or
Right,
a bank.
right.
And we're like, okay, that wasn't working for us. We said, let's try that.
So now take me to the first property. What was the first property we did together?
It was in Toronto.
Toronto?
Semi-detached,
Okay.
fully renovated house. You guys took us in. We met up with you guys. You took us in there. You said, you explained it all. You ran the numbers for us. You said this property will work for you. So we were scared. We're like, it's a big investment.
Yeah.
Do we do it? Do we don't do it? And you once you guys went through it all, we're like, yeah, let's just do it. So we bought it.
So was it a matter of like just seeing the numbers? Like, so I want to talk about that fear, because doing this for now almost 15 years, that's probably the most common thing we hear from investors is, or I shouldn't say we necessarily hear it, we feel it and see it.
Right.
Where they just don't throw their hat over the fence to get that first one.
Right.
And now I know it's become an addiction to you
Yes.
and your partner. You're number 11, right? So
Yes,
that is
definitely.
obvious. But that first one, what were you scared about?
I'm not a risk taker with
Okay.
money.
Okay.
I didn't owe money. I didn't want to owe money, and I'm not a risk taker, and neither was my partner.
Okay.
But the initial investment was significant, and we're like, okay, do we do it? Not do it. But we're like, we're going to try it, see what happens. We'll see if the numbers work. But it was the initial not a risk taker with money, so I didn't want to lose. I was afraid of losing.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so now that one was totally renovated, but it wasn't rented out.
No.
So we had to get the tenants,
Yes.
rent out the property.
Yeah. And your team made it easy because you said, with this house, we'll help you rent it out. We didn't know anything about renting it out. We didn't know anything about what was involved, but you said, well, we'll hold your hand, we'll take you through the first house and show you the way. So that made it easier for us because you were there the whole time. You got our first tenants.
Right. Now, you got to excuse me because I don't remember, because you've done so many now, I don't remember how long ago was the
was
one on
3 years ago.
That was 3 years ago.
Yes.
We had a couple of problems that came up there.
We had major problems
Okay.
in that house. We had the builder, when he did it, he didn't
Right.
connect the pipe
Yes.
behind the wall.
Right.
So for the first 5 months that the tenant was living in there, every time she flushed the toilet, every time she used the water was building up behind the walls and going across the floor.
Something the inspector wouldn't have even been able
they
to see.
couldn't, because we had it inspected,
Right.
and they said everything was fine.
Right.
So we went in, the tenant called and said, there's a sewage smell in the house, there's water pouring through in the basement. Like, what are you talking about? So we went in and they tore the drywall down and the water was all,
Just sitting there.
Yeah.
Was there mold in that? Like from the water that was
Yes.
sitting there? Okay.
Yeah.
Now that must have scared the shit out of you guys.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, oh my God.
yep, yeah. We
Exactly
don't have,
my fear
yes.
of dealing with, I always say, try not to, let us handle the tenants and toilets, but now you're literally dealing with a toilet problem, right?
So we had that problem,
Okay.
and the tenant turned out to be a little off.
Right.
She's like, this is unacceptable. She called the city on us,
Right.
the landlord people,
Yes.
and said they're not responding. We're like, what do you mean we're not responding? We're carrying wet drywall
Right.
and flooring out of your house. So we got introduced to the inspectors for the city, and
Yeah.
they're fantastic. They
Okay.
worked with us. They said, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You
Okay.
acted on it right away.
Right.
So,
So now you get all that fixed,
Yeah.
and we get a new tenant in there.
yes.
A lot of people would have ran from that property, or that, and just investing in general.
Right.
You and your partner didn't. Are you grateful that you didn't at this point?
Absolutely.
Because what's happened to that property in terms of values?
In value, it's gone up, and we
Significantly.
significantly.
Right.
We learned a lot from it, and we decided to turn the basement. It was a whole house that she rented, so we
Right.
decided to convert the basement into an apartment. So we built and renovated the basement, have great tenants upstairs, great tenant in the basement.
Okay.
So we learned a lot from it,
Just by going through
just
the
by
process.
going through the experience of it.
And not giving up.
Right.
And at the same time, you still invested in some pre-construction opportunities as well.
We did, and we also purchased another house in Pickering at the same time that this was going on
Right.
at Runnymede. So we
Okay.
were going between Runnymede and Pickering.
Okay.
And Pickering, we were renovating and going through the process of permits and everything like that.
So I love the fact that you guys have done kind of the whole menu of types of investment properties,
Yes.
i.e., properties that you can rent out the upstairs and the downstairs, as well as pre-construction. I know you put some money into other passive investments. We'll touch on that in a minute. When it comes to the pre-construction side of things, you've done 3 doors there now.
Correct.
Right? What excited you guys about that? Like what? Other than the opportunity in itself, what about pre-construction condo opportunities excited you?
It was something different.
Okay.
It was in the downtown core. We
Okay.
wanted more in the downtown core.
Why?
It's a good question. It's exciting in Toronto.
I like that.
Yeah, it's
It's so
exciting.
true.
If you go down to the downtown core, it's just an exciting place to be. So we thought, how do we invest? How do we get into this market?
Get a piece of that skyline.
Yeah,
Right.
and diversify what
Okay.
we had, because we'd been through the Toronto, we had Pickering. I believe we had another Pickering property at this point.
Right.
And then we thought, okay, you guys suggested, why don't you diversify a little, get into the pre-construction. Here's how it works. We have a great offer. We didn't have to put a lot up front, which was good for us.
Because you get to put that deposit structure in increments,
Right.
right? So not all your 20% down
Exactly.
payment is tied.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that was attractive for us. So we did that, and we said we'll buy one, and then we thought, okay, we'll buy two
Sure.
because the deal was so attractive. And
Right.
well, why don't we buy one more?
It becomes
So
a drug, Sue, doesn't it?
It does.
It really does.
absolutely does. I agree with you 100%. We always say, we go back to that first one. As soon as you do the first one,
Right.
the rest is easy. And you guys said to us,
Yeah.
I'll never forget it, in the
Okay.
beginning, that nobody can get over the fear of the first one. If you can, then you'll get to the point where you're not even looking at the houses. You see it, you know the money works, and you buy.
So true.
Yeah.
I want to go quickly back to the pre-construction one because the first one you did was on Richmond Street.
Yeah.
It's not built yet. It's I think there are about 50 to 70% done,
Yeah.
approximately. But I want to talk about the numbers a little bit.
Oh.
Okay, so when we're talking about pre-construction, and our listeners have heard other episodes we've done specifically on pre-construction, the one that we talk about is the episode I'm speaking about is buying from a blueprint. We talk about that if you can buy in the first stage of when the builder releases it, you then can take advantage of price increases. So you probably bought in and around $600 a square foot at that time in downtown Toronto. I don't know even if you know that it's probably worth close to $1,200 a square foot right now.
No.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Okay, so I'm glad we're talking. So just so you know, let's talk in dollars. So you actually purchased one of your units at in and around, I think, 400,000.
Not even that much.
No, so was it less
No.
than that? Like,
so the two units at
Yeah.
River City were $330
okay,
and $345.
345. Just so you know, that exact unit is close to about $600,000 right now,
Wow. I had no idea.
and it's not even built. And here's the neat. Here's what's really cool about that specific one. Because when we spoke, I said, let's think about this investment renting it out furnished.
Right.
At that time, 3 years ago, we were talking about furnished rentals at around $2,200. That's the pro forma that I showed you.
Yeah.
Just so you know now, unfurnished is going for $2,200 for that unit, and furnished is probably closer to about $2,800.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And so talking about how you could win in investments,
Yes.
it's so nice, right? Because you can win from the appreciation, but you also win from the extra cash flow.
Exactly.
Have you guys started to think about yet refinancing some of the properties? Have we done this
We've
yet?
done that.
Okay, so which one did
So
we refinance?
We refinanced Runnymede.
The first one.
The first house that we bought, within a year and a half,
Okay.
we refinanced. We could take $100,000 out of that house,
Right.
and invest it somewhere else.
Now, I know you didn't use it and go to Vegas with it.
Absolutely not.
You'll probably buy more.
We did buy more.
Okay,
We
exactly.
did buy. That's why we did it.
And here's the cool thing for our listeners, and I really hope that I can drill this point, and you and I can drill this point home, that $100,000 that you took out of that property wasn't like essentially your money.
No, it's not our money.
It was passive appreciation, and then we also had obviously the cash flow and the fact that the mortgage got paid down as well,
Yeah.
right? So sitting at 11 doors now, very busy with obviously your day job. What's next? I know you want to start shifting
I do.
into a new venture.
I do.
Still in real estate?
Absolutely. In
Okay.
Real estate. 100%. Love real estate.
Okay.
So I started for investment
Okay.
to make money.
Right.
And as we went through the process, like I love the process of dealing with the contractors, dealing with every part of it, the tenants, finding the tenants, advertising, dealing with the issues, the everyday issues that come up.
Yeah.
Loved it.
What do you like about that? I'm interested. Like, is it
The busier, the better.
Okay.
And helping people.
Got it.
My end game has kind of changed a little.
Okay.
Where I want to invest in as much as I possibly can.
okay?
But now I used to start and rent it out to people that had the best credit score, the best job. I just work with those people. But along the way, there's a lot of people that came in to see our houses that would say, you know what, I have bad credit. I'll be upfront with you. I have bad credit. I went through hard times. You know, you're probably not going to consider me. And I started thinking, well, why wouldn't I consider you? Why would I just take the person with the best? Because they're not necessarily the best person for the house.
Wow.
So the one couple that we had, they had terrible credit. You know, they both had good, okay jobs. They gave us a story. I said, you have to work with me. What happened in your life? Tell me what happened. And they said, yeah, you're not going to take us. And I said, I'm not saying that, but just work with me. And we put them in one of our properties. It was a risk, we felt at the time. And they've turned out to be one of our best tenants that we have. They keep that house like it's their own house.
Amazing.
So that's where I'm kind of going now. I want the real estate. I still want to invest and renovate as many houses as I can. Do the property management side of it, but help people. Make a difference. Get the people that maybe think that they can't afford to live there, or need a second chance.
Sure.
And give them a nice place to live.
And do what you're passionate about.
Absolutely.
So you essentially want to do some more property management.
Yes.
And managing all the
Manage
properties.
the whole thing.
The whole process.
Yes.
Okay. Is this now, like, have you, as you said, your end game has changed in your mind. Are you hoping to kind of replace your income that you have from the day job through real estate? Okay.
Definitely. Yeah.
And how long do you think you're going to be able to do? Like, what's your thought process
To get it started
to get it started?
as quickly as I can.
I love that.
Because I'm doing it now.
Right.
So it's how can I go further? How can I get to people and help them? Get more houses. I don't know what exactly it looks like, but get more places and more opportunities for people to kind of empower them.
Well, another thing that's been amazing with yourself, Sue, is what I've noticed in the last year, that you've not only been able to help people through, getting the, certain tenants into homes that most other landlords wouldn't. That in itself is amazing because you're willing to work with people and take the risk, because it is a risk, right? I don't necessarily always advise that, but you're obviously a little bit more patient, and I'm glad you're doing that. The other thing is that how many people you're getting involved in investing with you.
Yes. You started.
Talk a little bit about that, like doing joint ventures. How did that all happen? I know it was something that you wanted to do, but you're actually doing it. I'm on the phone with you, once every 2 weeks with a new investor you brought from somewhere. How's that been happening?
So it started after the 10th or 9th or 10th house. We realized that our money situation, we needed partners. We're like, how do we keep going? We want to keep going and build it as big as we can, but we don't have the cash right now. We don't
or you're
have
not going to be able to leverage and get the mortgage, right?
Right,
okay, great.
Exactly.
Okay, go on.
We need someone else to hold the mortgage. How do we do it? We talked to you guys. We met with you guys. We met with a broker, and he said, this is how you do it. Bring in partners. Find people that want to invest, hear about it, but they don't want to do the work. They don't want the responsibility. They just want to hold the mortgage and let you do all the work. So my partner would do the renovations. I'd help them, but I do the administrative. I look after it. They don't have to do anything. They just have to hold the mortgage. So we started talking, and we got our first customer.
Right.
He said, I'll do it. I'm a busy guy. I don't want the risk. You guys be 50%, I'll be 50%. And we did it.
We closed on that deal last week.
That was a year ago.
That was I apologize. That was
our very first one.
Okay.
Our very first one that you helped us.
Okay.
And it's exactly what happened. We did it all. He asked like once every 3 months, how's it going? He goes, I trust you guys.
Right.
Here's your cash flow. He says, perfect. I don't want to hear about it.
So
I don't want to hear about the problems.
So he's the one who goes on title.
He's on title.
He gets the financing.
Yes.
And yourself and your partner, you manage it.
So we're 50% in.
So it's 50-50.
It's 50-50.
Wow, okay.
So then we found someone else. They said the same thing, except they wanted a higher percentage. They wanted 70.
Okay.
And you guys taught us that you do what the customer wants.
Right.
So if they want a whole title and they want 70%, you go with what it is. It's still a piece of the pie. So we bought another house. We did the same thing. It was already a legal duplex. It was so easy. We went in. We had it rented within a month. We had both floors rented. And then we just got another client for the house that we just closed on.
And where do they come from? Like, where are you finding these clients? Is it friends,
mouth.
family, word of
friends.
mouth? Okay.
Friends of friends. One was a friend, and then he told somebody else, and they said, here's what they do. Here's what they do, so that's how we got them.
So we have approximately 10,000 people that listen to our podcast on a weekly basis. I want you, right now, because I don't do it, in terms of doing a sales pitch, but I want you right now to give us and give our listeners an idea of how they can partner up with you, and again, go through what you'll be able to offer them.
So we can call them, we can get in touch with them, we would meet with them, we would show them what we have.
Okay.
We go through our story, we have pictures of all our renovations, every problem we had, everything. This is what we have, this is what we paid, this is our cash flow on every single house. It's just facts.
Yes.
My partner does the renovation side. If there's any work, any maintenance, I do all the administrative, everything. I look after the house, from the tenants to the money, everything every month. Any information that you want on a monthly basis of your cash flow, everything, I provide that.
And you're looking for yourself and your partner, are just looking for somebody to hold title.
Yes.
And is that, as of right now, as of this recording, are we open for joint venture partners?
Absolutely.
Okay, absolutely.
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 We're open to anything.
Okay.
Because we learn as we go. So
Right.
somebody else might have, well, I want this. I want something different. We're okay. Then we work through it.
And you figure it out, and
Yeah, everything that's handed to us seems to be an opportunity for us to learn something new. So if someone's got an idea in their head of how they want it to look, then we'll work with them.
Okay.
We're not set on
right.
one thing.
One thing.
Yeah.
What is the goal right now? I'm just kind of curious. Like, how many properties do you want in the next 2-3 years?
We'd like to have probably another 10 to 15.
And I just know
Properties.
you're going to get them. I just
Yeah.
know it, because when we first sat down, myself and my partner Simeon with you and your partner, it's exactly what we discussed. Was we're going to go out and get. I got to be honest. I think we probably said let's get 4 or 5 properties in the next 3 years. You guys doubled it because you just took it and ran with it.
Right.
And now that you're open to getting more joint ventures, I'll actually be shocked if you don't do this in a couple of years. Your goal.
Yes.
Because it's people listening to this, you guys going out, through word of mouth and getting investors, and you actually also source out the properties with us, right? So
Yes,
we'll source out
absolutely.
the property. So they essentially, again, just most of the time, like you mentioned, just need to be willing to leverage their ability to get financing. And are we open kind of right across Southern Ontario?
Anywhere.
Anywhere,
We're
okay.
not limiting ourselves, and even to say 10 to 15 properties, I shouldn't say that. Like, the sky's the limit for us,
So true.
and any kind of situation
Right.
that the end user wants is we would work with, and we help reduce the risk.
Right.
A lot of people say I don't want to do it on my own.
Okay.
I had someone else that we spoke about last week, and I said, well, you can always go in your own. I'll help you. I'll help you with the whole process. I'll hold your hand through the whole thing. I don't need to be invested in it. And they're like, no, we want you. People seem to want someone with them to minimize the risk. It almost makes them take it to the next step.
And do you think that, again, going back to the fear, because they're just scared?
Yes. Yeah. And once you go through it, the one person we've had 2 properties with, he
Right.
said it is easy. He says, I still wouldn't want to do it myself, but I see the process. So we walk them through it. We would never leave them to say, oh, you deal with it on your own.
Right.
Well,
Well, it's the analogy that we always like to use, like we're kind of like the pilots throughout the process.
Yes.
When there's a little bit of turbulence, we're not going to jump out of the plane and say you're on your own,
right.
right? We're going to do this together.
Yeah. And that's what we have with your team.
Well, we appreciate that.
Absolutely. We would never have done it without you guys. And whenever we call, whatever situation that we can't figure it out, we'll talk and try to figure it out. We always go, wait a minute. Let's call those guys.
Well,
Because
look,
they always are there.
I don't
help
like
us.
to toot our own horn, but
Well,
it's
you
my
should.
show, so
You
I'm going to
should.
toot my own horn a little
Yeah.
bit. Is that when Sue and your partner give us a call, it's a known thing in our office.
Mm-hmm.
Drop what needs to be done. It's Sue Murphy on the phone. It just is, right? Because I say it half jokingly, but because when you guys call, we know that you're up to something. You want more. You need something answered, or whatever it may be. It's just going to take us closer to getting another 10 properties,
Right.
and now allowing you and I to sit down and share our story.
Yes.
What would you? Because there's definitely a listener right now that's thinking, I would love to do this. I don't want to necessarily partner up with anyone, or I don't know if I should partner up with anyone. What's your advice? That, like, 1 or 2 things that they can take away.
I think they have to have the right network and the right people behind them.
Okay.
I think that's key, because we wouldn't have done it without you guys, without the experience and the information, the knowledge that you guys have. There's no way we would have taken the first step. And to have someone walk you through it and be with you through the risk part of it, I think is important.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sue, I see you often. I love you. Thank
Love you
you.
too.
Thank you for doing this with us.
Thank you.
I know you got to run off to a property now and deal what you got to deal with there with one of the properties that you're getting licensed for
Yes.
the basement apartment.
Yes.
I know we're going to get a lot of interest in terms of possible joint venture partners, so we'll make sure we pass that on to you.
Great.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.